All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our June 2021 Charlotte area SharePoint user group meetup. My name's Andy. I'm going to kick things off here tonight. I've got just a couple of brief little housekeeping nuggets to throw out at you, some things that are coming up, and then we're going to dive into the main presentation. So let me go ahead and share my desktop. See a lot of new faces joining in tonight, and anybody goes back and looks at the recording later. We are active in a bunch of different places, so feel free to engage with us through social media, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You'll also find we have a YouTube channel. We post our monthly meeting recordings on our YouTube channel. Got a lot of engagement there, so please feel free to join us there. And the primary way to keep track of what we're up to and our events is through Meetup. That one's actually really easy to get to, kasig.org. It's going to be the best way to get to a Meetup and join in there. But we post all the upcoming announcements, meetings, and events through there. Outside of that, though, feel free to engage with us on some of the other channels that we have. Now, coming up in the next month, we have Joanne Klein. She's going to be doing a talk on SharePoint syntax. And if you haven't seen SharePoint syntax as part of Project Cortex, it was actually one of the first projects or products released out of that. If you've been to our SharePoint Saturday events in the past, Naomi Moneypenny's done a talk for us for the last 2 years on Project Cortex. Syntax is going to be more of a deep dive into one of the specific projects that they've actually released. This is going to be a tool for me, the way I kind of identify it is this is some of what SharePoint power users have done in the past, taking advantage of some of the workflow tools that we've had, taking advantage of like content types, working with some of the developer tools that are actually built into Microsoft Office, like for example, in Word, the ability to work with things like quick parts and data fields and properties and mapping that back to content types, the site columns, and then using things like workflows to tie it all together. This is like the next level of that. So like we would in the past spend a whole lot of time building solutions using those various tools, and there was a very small skill set of users that could actually do that. Well, Syntax actually takes all that effort and turns it into kind of an automated learning model where you can feed it documents, you can teach it what fields and what properties are important, train the model, and then as you start using information related to that in the future, you can build out entire processes around it. It's really, really awesome stuff. So we're going to have Joanne come in and do a talk coming up in July. We will officially announce the date. Just got to double check with Joanne's schedule, make sure everything's good, but we'll officially announce the date on that here soon. So she's going to do Project Syntax, an AI model walkthrough, talk about the capabilities, show you some practical examples of actually using it to really understand what the tool is capable of. She's going to cover the walkthrough for the setup, as well as training and deployment of the tool. And as she says in her synopsis, it is almost magic. It is really, really powerful stuff. So really excited for that one coming up in July. Now, with that out of the way, we've had a few questions around things like, are we going to be doing a SharePoint Saturday event this year? I just want to take a minute to kind of address that. Currently, we're not planning on one. Number one, venue is kind of a problem. We don't have facilities that are open for that yet. Sponsorship to be able to pay for the event is also something that is challenging. And then on top of that, the back end of this year is loaded with conferences. Everybody's pushed everything to the back end of 2021. So sponsorship and speakers are proving to be a challenge. So at this point, we're not planning on one. We just want to keep everyone informed. There is a chance that might change in the future. But as of right now, we're looking at 2022 for the next Charlotte area SharePoint Saturday event. And as everyone knows, SharePoint Saturday has evolved into Microsoft 365. It's not just about SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Power Apps, Power Automate, and then all of the other apps that are part of the Microsoft 365 suite are really things that we cover at those events. But as things change, we'll have more information. We will be sure to get back to everyone. All right, so last little bit, and then we're going to kick things off. So tonight we are here to talk about app templates for Microsoft Teams. We are very fortunate to have Microsoft MVP, Christina Wheeler, here to present for us this evening. I'm going to switch up cameras and get Christina on the feed here. 1 second. All right. There we go. Christina should be coming into focus. I'll spotlight on her in just a second, and then we'll kick things off from there. But just want to give Christina a warm welcome. She's actually been a speaker at our SharePoint Saturday events over the last couple of years. Even I think we had her come in at the last minute one time, reached out and was like, hey, down in Macon. So you want to make a quick trip up to Charlotte for the weekend. So some of you have had the pleasure of hanging out, interacting, collaborating with Christina in the past. But if you haven't, Christina is very well versed in pretty much all things Microsoft. I don't think there's an area of the Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform that she hasn't touched in some aspect over the course of her career. Every time I talk to her, it seems like she's working on something different inside of there. She's like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to this platform. I don't know how she does it. She's also a drone enthusiast. We just had a conversation about Christina trying to catch her drone with her face, which is not recommended. So try to avoid that if you can. Paddleboarder as well, and just all around awesome person. So Christina, welcome.
Thank you.
Really happy to have you here this evening for this particular talk. But what are you working on these days?
So can you hear me? Is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually joined, I'm working with Power Platform Engineering at the moment. So what I'm doing is I'm running the Power Automate RPA Partner Program for Microsoft. And what it is we're onboarding RPA projects and partners. And so what it does, it helping provide engineering support. So what I'm doing is also helping to help with engineering support as well. So it's been exciting. It's been fun. I was also working with customer insights, but now what I've had to get used to is that year end for Microsoft is the end of this month, which I'm used to year end being actually December. So I'm getting heavily involved in the Power Platform side, and it's been exciting working with the Power Cat team. So that's currently what I'm doing. And before that, I was working on a SharePoint migration. So you got to understand, I was very happy to roll off of that for a while.
I can imagine. I'm actually getting ready to start a couple of SharePoint migrations myself for some clients, and thankfully they're not as large as like what Doug Ware's been working on for like the last couple of years, seems, or some of the larger ones that you've talked about with some of that. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'm really excited for what you're going to share tonight. So let's dive right in. I'll be monitoring Q&A. If anybody has questions, send those through. We will get those to Christina. But let's talk about app templates for Microsoft Teams.
Okay, great. This is a topic I'm very passionate about because thank you, Andy, for the awesome introduction. One of the things, my background is I do everything with technology. I'm a developer, I'm a graphic designer. I've been involved in SharePoint since the very beginning of the product. And I love technology. So what I'm going to talk about is app template for Teams. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Christina Wheeler. I'm a principal solution architect at Canvas Consulting. But like I said, I'm doing a role at Microsoft right now, working with the Power Platform Engineering team. And I've co-authored some books. And I swore to myself I was never going to write another book. And guess what I'm doing? I'm working on another book. But you can catch me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a blog. Unfortunately, eventually I'll start writing. I'm horrible at that, but like I said, I took on another book. And I have some dogs. I have one of them in the kennel, Actually, I have a new baby here. You might see him sleeping over here. He is Seamus. I'm not a dog hoarder, I promise. I took in a friend's parents' dog. I was supposed to rehome him. I fell in love with him, and so currently I have 3 dogs. But I have an old man, Hank, on the left. He's actually sleeping somewhere in the house. I have Kona, who is, as someone put it the other day, I had a service tech come out for my security, and he basically called Kona half a horse. Said he's the sweetest dog ever, but that he's like the size of half a horse. So, but Kona, I'm a big dog person, so I love my dogs. But I put him in the kennel right now because these 2 like to play, and I wanted to make sure that everything was going to be calm for my session. All right, so the agenda for today, there's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the M365 developer program. I want to talk about the Microsoft Teams app platform, just give you a quick overview of that. And then my core topic is talking about app templates. And then I'll provide you with some resources. So one of the things some of you may not be aware of this, but Microsoft does have the M365 developer program that you could sign up for. It is free. And what it'll give you is 25 E5 licenses. It's a developer sandbox, so it's set. Before it used to not auto renew. Now it auto renews. So it's basically set to renew every 30 days automatically as long as you're using the tenant. So I use this tenant to prototype out. I use it to test things out and to do different things. So this is something you can sign up for, and you can, so you just go to that link, that URL there, and you'll be able to sign up for the program. And then what I want to talk about is the Microsoft Teams app platform. You know, let's face it, before 2020, I know many of us were traveling a lot. I was on a plane, 90,000 miles a year. Everything completely stopped. And before our world kind of turned into the twilight zone, that's the way I like to put it, not everybody knew about Microsoft Teams. People knew about Teams, some organizations were moving to Teams, but I would have to say one of the benefits of COVID has been that Teams has gotten so much, became very popular, right? Because now organizations were forced to move to something, and many of them have moved to the Teams platform because a lot of organizations were working in person, and then they were completely forced to actually adopt the remote workforce. So that's where Teams, became more and more popular. And so one of the things I always get asked a lot of, especially for people that are new into Teams, is they get overwhelmed, or they look at it and say, gosh, Teams is really great. I love what it's doing, but what else can we do? And as I told you guys, I came from the SharePoint world. I've been involved in SharePoint since the very beginning of the product. And I did custom development for SharePoint, and I loved it. But the thing is SharePoint's SharePoint's been around a long time now. So, and this is why I like Teams, because Teams, there's so much as a developer. Now, you don't have to be a developer for this topic that I'm going to talk about today. But as a developer, I see Teams as a great opportunity for you to be able to build solutions to help empower your business, or if you're a consultant, to help empower your customers. And so what you can leverage is the Microsoft Teams app platform. And so there's these different capabilities that you have within Teams, and the different capabilities that you can build apps for. One of them is you could have a tab, your app can have a tab. And many of you, when you go and create a Teams team, you'll already have a tab and different tabs and different things. You can create a bot. There's connectors, there's adaptive cards, which I'll talk about, actionable messages, activity feeds, and compose extensions. Now, what Microsoft has done is they've created what's called app templates for Teams. So they've created these Microsoft Teams app templates. And the goal of this is to look at different business scenarios and have these pre-built templates that you can deploy into your tenant. So the benefit of this is you don't have to start, if you're not a developer, you don't have to hire a developer to create, the solutions for you. Or if you're a developer, you can start with this, and you don't have to start from scratch. So it's given you a plug and play experience that you can deploy. And when I first started evangelizing for app templates, there were probably about 3 or 4, and now there's a lot more. And what you can do is you can go to this link, and I'll put it in the chat, but you can go to this link And this will take you to, they just changed the website now. It's going to be super large in what I pasted in there. But if you go to that link, it's going to take you to this website here. It's going to take you to this website here that introduces you to Microsoft Teams app templates. And then you can go to the gallery, and the gallery is where you're going to have a list of all the available app templates that you can deploy into your tenant. And these different app templates, like I mentioned, are going to fit different business scenarios. So there's a lot more here. You're going to see a whole lot more. And anytime, there's even some new ones here. Even more new ones. So anytime there's a new one that's launched, they're going to have a little star next to it for a certain period of time. So you can say, okay, this is another new one that has been made available. And so these different solutions, what you'll see is you'll see a list of all these. And then if you want to read more information about it, or you can click Get It on GitHub. And when you go to Get It on GitHub, this is going to take you to the solution. So you have access to all this code. So if you're a developer, you can deploy this. You can decide to modify the code that you have to fit your needs. So you can enhance this pre-built solution that you deploy. Or you can even just deploy it as is. So if I go on this one is an appointment manager. And so what you'll have is each one of these is going to have documentation, a deployment guide, and then architecture. So what I can do is when you're looking at it, you can go to the architecture and it's going to show you the full breakdown of the architecture of this app template. And so for this one, I can see this is a bot. So this one's a bot. It uses the bot service. It leverages the Graph API. And of course, this is something that will be deployed into Teams. And so you'll see a list of everything. And then what I can do is I can say, you know what, maybe I want to deploy this app template. So if I want to deploy this app template, I can go to the deployment guide, and you're going to have step by step of everything you need to do to deploy this to your tenant. And like I mentioned, you do not have to be a developer to deploy these, but you do have to be a tenant admin. Some of these will require you to do some app registrations in the Azure portal. Some of these are just going to be strictly a power up and flow. I mean, each one of these solutions is different. Let me go back to the app templates here. Go back to the list. So there's quite a bit, but as you keep going, you know, let's find one of the other ones here. Let's go down to, like, there's a new employee onboarding, and I'll see, oh, this one is actually leveraging SharePoint. So each one of these solutions is going to have, you know, different ones are built on different technologies. And so you can go and see what might fit your need. Let me play, hang on, there we go. So it's one-click deployment, and you can deploy it to your tenant. And the key benefits of this is you get a plug and play experience. So you just follow the instructions to deploy it into your environment. It is production ready code. So all these have been built by Microsoft, by the Microsoft engineering team. Right now, they haven't opened it up to have anybody contribute. So like I said, these have been completely vetted and built within Microsoft. And so then they'll deploy those. And so, but you have access to the code, so you can customize it and extend it. So if it's the code, like it's a bot or something like that, you can download the code. And then if it's a Power App, right, you can completely change the Power App. And I'm going to demonstrate some of these today, some of the different app templates that are available. Now, the other thing is these are, there is you know, all the documentation, support documentation for you. The repositories are monitored. So if you run into an issue with the deployment, because let's face it, things constantly change in the cloud, right? I'm having to manage different GitHub documentation, and I'm having to make sure I at least check it, test every 2 weeks to make sure things are up to date, because interfaces change, right? Things in Azure changes, things in, like, look at this screenshot, it's old. It says Microsoft Azure Preview. So I obviously need to update this one. But if you run into any issues where you're trying to deploy some of these, just report those issues on GitHub, and they're being monitored by the engineering team. Okay, so before I talk about deploying these app templates, one of the things I want to talk about is what you need to do in preparation of your tenant. And this is where I said you might want to have I have developer tenants. I have an M365 developer tenant with that program. So some of these I might deploy in there to test. If you're not a tenant admin and the settings are locked down, this is where you either need, this is an actual, Teams tenant admin level setting. But if you want to deploy this into your own environment, one of the things you have to make sure that is enabled is custom apps. And so if I'm in the Teams Admin Center, you have the option to click on Manage Apps, and this is where you can turn on and turn off settings. Well, Microsoft has changed some things now. And so when you're in the Teams Admin Center, and actually let me go to the Teams Admin Center. It's the one I forgot to open today before my session. So originally, when these first started, you had some limited settings in the Teams Admin Center that you could set. And so what was happening was organizations were deciding to either completely turn on or turn off third-party apps and custom apps. So if I go here, I'm in Manage Apps in the Teams Admin Center, and I have the option here to click on org-wide app settings. And when I click on here, this is the overall settings where I can completely turn on or turn off for the entire tenant what I want to allow. Now, the recommendation is, let's say you want to, you might decide you don't want to allow third-party apps, or you only want to allow certain third-party apps. The recommendation is you don't turn it off here, and instead you're going to control things through permission policies and setup policies. So, but if, let's just say though that your organization does have this turned off, if you want to deploy these app templates, you have to have custom apps has to be turned on, because any of these app templates are considered a custom app because you're taking this app and you're deploying it into your environment. So that is considered a custom app. The third-party apps are anything that are actually published in app source. So if I were to go here and see all these apps, or if I were in Teams and I go add an app, those are apps on app source. So that's considered the third-party app. And then the other one is the Microsoft apps. So if I go back to here, those are okay, no, these are just the third-party apps. There we go. And then the custom apps, and the settings have changed. Then you also have permission policies here. And so what you could decide to do is set up a new permission policy, or I can even go in the org-wide here. And so by default, everything's turned on. Well, maybe you have this turned off and have it blocked. You want to make sure you allow custom apps. But you can also decide you only want to allow specific apps. So these are things that you can handle within your permission policies. Those are things that are going to need to be enabled on your tenant to be able to deploy these app templates. Okay. So I got to update this screen because it's obviously outdated too. Apologies for that. The other thing I'll talk about is setup policies. So one of the things is, like, let's say you deploy some of these app templates, and then you decide that you maybe want, you can have different setup policies for different people within your organization, so that you can decide to have specific apps pinned in the navigation bar here. And so you can control what apps are going to show up by default and what order that is based upon your setup policies. So this is, I mean, this could be a whole nother session that I could talk about, just Teams, this whole Teams admin stuff right there. But I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Okay, but the core of this is actually really talking about app templates. And one of the app templates I want to talk about and demonstrate is kind of one of the first app templates that Microsoft published. And this one is called custom stickers. And I like to demonstrate this one because I think there's a very good use case behind this. So the technology behind this is, it is a messaging extension. And what a messaging extension is if I'm in Teams here, I'm just going to go into a chat. Oh, let me launch Zoom it real quick, guys. Give me 1 second so I can Zoom. I redid a bunch of my computers and I don't know where that is. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'll go back to here. See, I wasn't prepared. This is what happens. I do presentations when I completely redo computers. So hold on. Let me download this. My apologies. Thought I had it on here. I'm not used to the Microsoft magnifying thing. I'm used to this thing, so I'm going to use this. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Select all. Okay. See, I haven't presented in a while. I'm a little rusty. All right, so let me just extract this, run it. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I'm good to go. All right, so going back to here. So what a messaging extension is when you're in a chat, it doesn't matter if it's a one-on-one chat or here I'm in a channel chat message. Messaging extensions are extensions here within the message. So anytime a user or yourself is going to respond or communicate in a message, any of these icons here are a messaging extension. So anytime you see one of the app templates that says messaging extension, that means this is the functionality or the capability here. And so the use case for this custom stickers is there's a lot of organizations that want to lock stuff down, which I understand that. And if I were to go in here, let me just create a new, I'm just going to create a new channel real quick. And I'll call this, CLT Spug. So I'm going to create a new channel. So that way we have a channel here set up with all the default settings. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start a new conversation. Actually, I think it is turned on. Some of this is. Oh, I already see. This is what happens. I demo. So let me go change something real quick. Give me a second. Okay. I actually should have turned this on and I didn't. So now it's back to the default settings. So now if I'm going to go to this demo here and I were to go, let's go into this bug here and I go to create a new conversation. So I'm going to go do a new conversation here. And by default, Giphies and memes are turned on. So that means people within your organization can use these Giphies and memes. So they can use whatever's here by default, right? Maybe you don't want to allow this. Maybe you want to control this more. So this is where I think this app template has a very good use case. And even if you wanted to keep those on, I still think it's a good use case because you can deploy this to have your own messaging extension, to have your own controlled images within that extension. So that the technology behind this is a messaging extension. This does have to be deployed to Azure. And what it'll give you is from the admin side, you're going to have a website that you're going to log into as an admin. So you can actually upload the images that you want to allow in this messaging extension. And so what'll happen is, so here's the technology behind it. It is a messaging extension. There's a configuration app, and all I did when I did not customize any of this code. I deployed the solution completely 100% as is. So I deployed it as is and it worked, no problem. Okay, so in here, this is the configuration page that is served up in Azure, where as the admin, you would sign in. And when you do the setup, you would assign who you want to be the admins to actually access this configuration page. So they can go in here and say, okay, here's the images that I want to allow in this messaging extension. Now this app is called Stickers. You can call it whatever you want, but I just kind of kept it with what the app template name is. So, I had fun with my images. John Levesque's wife is a phenomenal illustrator, and so she's been doing a lot of custom stickers for people. And so if I go back here to my custom app, so here's my Azure configuration app. And I know it's an Azure app. If I look here too, here's the actual Azure website address. So I deployed this, like I said, as is. I didn't touch the code. I didn't change the code. I just deployed this exactly the way it is. So this is a messaging extension. And so I already have some images preloaded in here. And if you see, I have 5 so far. Okay. And then, so it's already deployed. And if I were to go in here and try to chat, here's my stickers app right here. It's called Stickers. You can change the icon to what you want. You could change the name of the app to what you want. Like I said, this is what I have it called. So if I click on Stickers here, what it's going to do now, and of course it's going to be slow. It's normally fast. It's going to be slow because I'm just demoing it now. But once it loads for the first time, then you'll be fine after that. I haven't showed this demo in a while. Okay, there we go. So now you see it's loading my stickers, and you see these are all of the 5 that I showed you that I have in here. Okay. Now I'm going to upload another one. Let me upload another image to this messaging extension. Add new. I go browse for a file. And maybe I just want I wanted the supercharge one. Okay, so supercharge. I can set keywords on here, and the keywords are any keywords you want to allow your users to search for this image. So I'll say superhero, supercharge, right? Anything you want, hero. And then, so I'm tagging keywords to this image, and then I'm going to add the sticker. And so what it's going to do is it's going to upload it now. Now, I uploaded it here, but what I did not do is update the messaging extension. So if I were to go back in here, it's not going to show up yet. So to get it to show up, what I have to do is after I upload all the images I want here, I need to click on update messaging extension. And when I click on it, what it's going to do is going to update this configuration. And what's going to happen is I should see my new image pop up here shortly. There you go. So now you see my new image has been loaded. And so if I click on here, there is my image that I posted. There we go. There's my image that I posted from my messaging extension. Now, this out of the box, I mean, this is very limited. So this is where I had planned on later, maybe customizing this and posting it on GitHub to where, because right now it's very limited. What happens is the images, I don't have a way to set the image sizes here. So however the image size you upload is going to be the image size that actually is going to be in the app. So as a developer, I can decide to come in here and maybe enhance this and take the code and update it. The other thing I don't have on here is categories. Maybe I want to add, enhance it some so that way I can categorize some of these. So, but like I said, this is a starting point for you. But the benefit of this is in the use cases, you might decide you want to have your own images you want to allow your organization to use. And then what you can do, you can go and turn off in your team and decide that it's under fun stuff, obviously. Maybe you don't want to allow the Giphies and the memes. So you can turn that stuff off. Turn that off, but only allow yours. So now when I go in here, you're going to notice the Giphy and memes messaging extension buttons are gone. But I do allow my custom stickers app. So now people can just go ahead and use the images that I control within the organization. Any questions? What do you think? I think this is a good use case. And like I said, I made it fun. You can have serious images, you can have funny images, but I thought this was a good use case because the number one thing that I get from customers is saying, hey, we really want to lock some of this down. And maybe this is something you might want to do from like your org wide level teams, but you might want to keep things more enabled on some of your actual project teams, right? And that's the whole thing with governance and deciding, hey, if we want to control this a little bit more to not allow these things, but we want to allow it here and so on. Okay. So that's the stickers one. Then if I were to delete one, let's say, okay, so I have that in there. You'll see I have that new one in there. Well, it won't affect the messages that someone typed in. But what I can decide to do is say, maybe I don't want this in here anymore. So I can delete it. But I have to update the messaging extension for it to actually update. And then when I go in here and try to do a new message, now you'll notice that that image is gone. Okay, so that's one example of an app template. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is an incentives app. This is another good one. This is an actual Power App template. This one's a fun one, and this one I need to enhance, or I do already have ideas on what I want to enhance on it. But this is a Power App template that you can use for managing and tracking incentivized employee participations. And why does my mom keep calling me? Okay. So there's going to be two screens on here. You have an admin screen and you're going to have one for employees. Let me text my mom. She's blowing up my phone. I want to make sure it's not an emergency. She normally doesn't call me like that. Sorry, y'all. Let me just make sure I was good. Okay, so going here, you're going to have two screens. You're going to have a home and an admin, and this is going to be based upon who's logged in. So what'll happen is if I'm logged in and I'm got the admin rights, I actually am going to see the admin tool button. But for those that aren't admins, they're not going to see that. So they're only going to see, what they have access to. So this is a Power App, and this one's a fun one, and this one's actually easy to deploy. You're going to have a Power App Canvas app that you would import into your tenant. And then there's some SharePoint lists that are going to be used as the data source. So you would have, there's 4 different lists, and let me go ahead and open that up. So let's just talk about the deployment first. If I go back to here. Oh yeah, got bad news from family. Okay. So I'm going to go here and go to Workplace Awards. No, that's incentive one, sorry. Incentives app, let's go to incentives. So if I go to incentives, and this is what I did. So this one's a little bit different on the deployment, and this one's actually easy. This one's a lot easier to deploy than the custom stickers one that I did. So this one on the architecture, like I mentioned, it's a Power App. There's some connectors to it. So this is strictly, there's nothing in Azure for this one at all. And so this one's going to be a Power App, and it's going to be a SharePoint list. And so if I go to the deployment guide, it's going to have all your stuff here. It's going to give you the PowerShell script if you want to actually deploy, create the list using PowerShell. But some of you may not be comfortable running PowerShell, or you might not have the access. So what you could do too is there are links here where you can create the list manually. And it's just going to give you instructions and tell you all of the names of the columns you need to create and all the settings so that you can create that for this Power App. So I have that all set up. And let's go to here, go to SharePoint. All right. I have an incentive site here. And so what's going to happen is the users aren't going to actually go to the site. This is the site that's just going to be the backend for the Power App. And if I were to go in here and go into the site contents here, I'm going to see that I have four lists that this Power App uses. So I have one that I'm going to actually hold the different incentives. The other one's going to hold the rewards that's going to be presented. And then the other 2 are going to be the user data store. So what incentives are being set for the users, and what rewards have they cashed in. Okay, so that's going to be the behind the scenes part. And then the other part is the Power App. And I got to see which environment I have this in. It's probably this one here. Way too many environments. Here we go. So what it will happen is when you're deploying this, you would just download. If I go back to the deployment guide, I'll go back to the settings here, and I would just download the code. And I'm not going to fully, this one I actually want to show you because I'm not going to fully deploy, but I just want to show you a few steps. So if I would download the zip, I'm going to save this, and then I'll just put it in here. And here's a very important step that I want to show you because most people are not aware of this. When you download zip files from the internet, what's going to happen is it's going to be protected. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on properties, and you're going to know if it's protected because when you click on the properties, you're going to see an unblock box here. And so I know it's blocked. So what I want to do before I do anything is I want to unblock this file. And if I unblock it and click apply, I know it's unblocked. And so if I click OK and go back to the properties, you'll see that I no longer have it blocked. And a lot of people don't know this, and this happens to a lot of your files. And so sometimes you may not unblock it and you might be able to deploy okay. Other times you might not unblock it, you try to deploy and it won't, things don't work. And it's because when you unzip it, some of the files are actually going to be missing because it was protected. And that's a Windows 10 thing, and it's going to be a Windows 11 thing as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and extract it. And then when I extract it, so this is the GitHub repository here for this app template. And then what I have here, here's the PowerShell script for the SharePoint lists. I'll just open that up. I didn't run it. I ended up creating mine manually, I think at the time when I deployed this. And then here you're going to have the Power App as well. And if I open it, there's the Power App. Of course, you're going to leave the Power App zipped. So then to deploy that, what I would do is I'm going to do this in a different environment here. I'm going to go to apps, import Canvas app. When I import, I'm going to browse for my zip file. Okay. And now what it's going to do, it's going to go ahead and upload my package. And this is where I'm going to see if I have any issues. All right, perfect. So I'm uploading my package here and it's showing, okay, great. Here's my package. I can decide to rename it. It's going to create it as new. I can decide maybe I want to add a space in this name or not, you know, how I want this resource name to be named. I'm going to click save and then I'm going to go ahead and click import. And have patience. Okay, now that I've imported it, the next thing I'm going to do is open the app. So it's going to open it up in Power App Studio. And so at this point, you should already have your SharePoint list created. So as I showed you, I have my SharePoint list created. Now it's going to have, there's two connectors with this app template. It's going to have the Office 365 users and the Office 365 groups. And the groups is being used because it's going to control if the user is going to be able to get to the admin screen or not. So that's why it's going to use the Office 365 groups as well. I'm going to go ahead and click allow and then let it open. Okay, now I'm going to have a lot of red here, and typical common when you import a Power App template because the data sources are tied to the actual data source that the template came from. So the first step of this Power App now would be for me to go and update my data sources. Actually, no, not that one. It's updating the groups because this is a collection. That's right. So, but this is where you would actually go into the instructions and let's go back to the instructions here. So you just follow the instructions here on the deployment guide. And like I said, it's been a while since I've deployed this one, but it'll go through, you'll create the SharePoint list, you'll have the SharePoint list, and this is where you're going to have to actually get your group IDs and different IDs. Then you import that in, then you're going to update the data sources. So they changed the Power App. Interesting. Okay, so it's changed a little. This isn't going to be a good one for me to go through again. Oh no, so you have to go in and add the data sources. I see what they did with the deployment now. So what I have to do is go and add the SharePoint data sources in. And so let me go into my actual working Power App that I have now. Go into this other tenant, go into apps, go into the incentives application and go click edit. Come on. Close some of these other windows now. So I'm getting some red. I don't know why. I've got to look. I've got so many environments, but there's definitely some issues with my formulas. So this is the other thing that to be aware of. This is the life of the cloud, right? I deployed this a while back, and so I haven't checked or updated the app and so on. But let's just go in and look. So I have my data connections here. It's going to show that it's pointing to my SharePoint site. I have some collections here as well. I'm going to try to run on start to see if things will run. Yeah, so this is a little broke. Okay, but what happens is once you get the Power App the way all set up and ready to go, you would publish the Power App. And then in this case, what I have is it also walks you through actually creating an incentive site, an incentives app, one for the admins. Come on. Yeah, it's missing. It's totally missing. My demo was working before. Let's go and add. See which one is the right one. Haha. See? I was in the wrong environment. I apologize, guys. I had this demo working. Okay, here we go. So here's the incentives app, and there's nothing in here right now. This is pulling the SharePoint list. So and it detects I'm not the admin. If I was the admin, I would actually see this other button here. But Deploying things to teams, let's just go back and let's go here to back to my Power App here. Go to done. One of the cool things that you have now within Microsoft Teams is the ability to add it to Teams directly from Power Apps. So what'll happen is, in meaning that Power Apps now has a button for you to click on Add to Teams. So let's say click Add to Teams. When I click Add to Teams, I can click Add to Teams or Download App. If I click Download App, what's going to happen is it's going to create the zip file for me that I need so I can upload it into Teams. So I'll save this, and if I were to download it, I still need to do the same thing I did before, where I'm going to go in here, click the properties of it, unblock it, and then I can go back into Teams here, and I can go ahead and upload this app. Now let's see if this other option works, because I haven't tested it. I've only manually done it. So I'm going to click on Add to Teams, and then I'm going to click on Add to Teams again. And I want to use the web because I'm signed into a different tenant right now. This is cool. So I'll go in here, I'll click, I decide to add this to a team. And in this case, I'm going to add it to, because you saw that I created well, actually, here's another team I have created here, Charlotte's Bug. I'm going to set up the tab to decide if I want to post in the channel message about it or not. And here we go. So there's the app. All right, so I'm having issues, but I have a different working demo I'm going to show you, and I apologize, guys, because I apparently switched tenants. So that's one of them. That's the incentives one. And so, like I said, let me just show you the screenshot since my demo is not working at the moment. What'll happen is, and this is where you can modify the Power App, but it is like, let's say people completed training and you want to offer things. You can put in what the rewards are going to be. Maybe it's going to be a gift card, Uber Eats, stuff like that. So you can say, okay, here's the gift that I want, or the reward I want to allow. You put in how many points they can get for it, and then you would give them a code that they would put in. So, if you complete this training, or maybe they complete a training, and this is where you could do too. They complete a training and maybe you have a flow that kicks off that gives them this special code. So then they go in here, they insert the code, and then it's going to say, okay, congratulations, here you just received this reward. And so the user will be able to go in and they'll be able to say, see how many points they've earned, how many points they've redeemed, and then they'll say, so they can go in and say, okay, I want to go ahead and cash in some of these rewards. So this is a great app, and it's free. This is free. Okay. Then this last one I want to show you, this is a newer one that's out. Is an extremely good use case behind this, because as more and more people are deploying to teams, what's happening is, the biggest question is, how can I control people creating a team? And so what I'm seeing organizations do is they're completely shutting it off so people can't create a team, which I get why they're doing that. But there's a very good app template that you can deploy into your tenant to allow provisioning, creating a team, so it actually can go through an approval process. And this solution will give a wizard guided request form. It is a Power App. Now, this is also going to use Power Automate, and it's also going to use a Logic app. And so let's see, I thought I have the architecture behind this. Yes, I do. Okay. So this consists of a Power App. The Power App is going to be the Power App that's going to be embedded into Teams so that your users can say, hey, I need to request a new team to be created. Then there's going to be a flow. There's a flow that is going to kick off. So anytime a user requests to have a team created, you're going to have a flow that's going to kick off for approval. That flow is going to send an adaptive card into a team for the approvers. So when you deploy this, you will actually have a requested teams admin team created, and the only people that have access to this team are the people that I want to allow to actually approve these requests from coming in. Okay, so I do have a Power App. Other tenant. So if I go into my Power App, requested team node isn't the other one. Okay. I had duplicates, so I know one of them. I've had issues in this tenant lately, which is why certain things are broke at the moment. All right, so here's the requested team. This is the same thing. You'd go into GitHub, download the solution to deploy it. The solution is also going to deploy a flow. There's a PowerShell script you're going to run on the Azure side. So let me go back to here to go back to the actual deployment guide. Oh, come on, go back one more, back one more. So the one you would want, if you want to deploy this, you want to look for the request a team. And then this one, you would go get this one on GitHub. And this one here would have the deployment. So it's going to show you, it consists of a Power App. It's going to consist of a flow in Power Automate. It's going to consist of SharePoint because there are SharePoint lists that it's going to use to store. That's right, there is a SharePoint list. Let me go to that. We'll go to SharePoint. There's a SharePoint site here, request a team app. And this is just going to be for the data. This is the data source. So your users, once again, are not going to access this. And what's going to happen is this app is going to have multiple lists. One of them is going to hold the team's templates, because what happens is they're going to be able to decide to create a team from scratch or create a team from an existing template. You can control which templates you want to allow. And those, so you'll have the list deployed with all the current Microsoft templates, but you can decide what you want to turn on and turn off. Okay, so that's what this is going to use. And then there's also going to have one for team request settings. So when you initially deploy this, you are going to have to update a few things. One of them is going to be, what your tenant URL is. Another one is you're going to have to actually get your team's ID for the approval process to post the adaptive card, and then the team's channel ID. So in the instructions is going to show you exactly how to get all that information. So on there, you'll have those settings. And then there's going to be another list to hold the requests. So anytime somebody submits a request to have a team created, that request is going to get put into the SharePoint list. And so all this will be controlled right through the Power App though. So here's the Power App. I'm in the Power App here. I'm looking at it through Power App Studio. If I wanted to go ahead and click play, I'm going to see I have different things here. My request, request a team, and approve request. And so this is what happens is you'll upload this, you'll deploy it, you'll publish it, then you'll deploy it into Teams. So I do have it deployed. And if I go here, I think I just have it under General, Request a Team. So here I have a Request a Team tab that I've added this Power App to. So instead of your users just being able to, so if you had it turned off to create a team, they would not have the ability. If you turned it off, they wouldn't have the ability to do this. This wouldn't even show up, okay? Because you would say, all right, I'm going to turn it off for allowing them to create a team this way, but you can allow them to go through this provisioning process. So I can go here to request a team. So your users can come in here and say, okay, I'm ready to request a team. So what I'll do is say, all right, do I want to build one from scratch or create it from a template? If you create it from a template, this is where it's going to pull that information from that SharePoint list. So if I go back to my SharePoint list here, Teams templates, it's pulling this data right here. Okay, so if I go back to here, that's what that's pulling. So this is where you can decide, you might not want all these templates because you might not be in healthcare, so you might not want that one, right? But right now I have it showing everything. Or if I want to just go ahead and start from scratch, I'll start from scratch. And this is the Power App. I'll click to build new. And so first option here, the user will get, is it going to be private or public? I'll say, you know what, I want this to be a private team, so people have to request to join. I'll click on next. Now this is where a flow is going to kick off, because what happens is you want to be able to allow them to check if that team name is available. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say check to see if ESPC demo is available. I'm going to click check availability. And it's telling me this team name is taken. Try again. It's telling me go into flows. I'm going to go into flow here. Now this is what some of the stuff that was deployed from this app template. I have one here, check team availability. This is the one, and I should see I had one that ran right here. There we go. So this is where this flow is going to kick off. It's going to check to see if this team actually exists, and it's going to give an answer back to the user. It's telling me that it's taken. So try again. All right, so let's just say, okay, check availability again. It's going to kick off another flow. If I go back here and check, I see there's another flow here that ran, succeeded, and you'll see that if I went back here, it's telling me the team name is available. Okay. say demo team. This is for me. So now I'm putting in the required fields in here to submit this request. I'm going to click next. When I click next, here's where I have it set up to where you have to. So this is what I like about this template. Right now, if your users go and create a team from Teams, it's only going to make them the owner. Of course, they can add additional owners, but it only requires one. This template takes it a step further. This template requires you to have at least two. And the reason behind that is because it's been very common in organizations to have people create teams. They leave the organization and they never made anyone else an owner. So this is saying, hey, okay, for governance reasons, we're just going to go ahead and enforce people when they request a team to have two owners on this team. So here I'm going to go ahead and add Tony Stark as the second owner. So now I'm making myself the first owner. I'm making Tony Stark the second owner. And then here I can add members. And now I don't have to add members. Oh, I think I'm having an internet issue all of a sudden. So you can require to have members or not, but what'll happen is it's not required. So once the team gets created, then what'll happen is, why is this reconnecting? Awesome. So now what I get a preview here. Okay, I want to preview and submit this request and say, okay, this is good. It looks good. I want to go ahead and submit it. And now it's telling me that it's been submitted and check for approval. Now I do have one issue with my app right now. I got to figure out what's wrong. When I set this up, I use follow the instructions and follow what they tell you to do, because I used one of my main accounts and I shouldn't have done that. So, but if I go into approve a request here, I'm going to see it. And so this is pretty cool, because what I'm going to see here is, okay, you see I just submitted this request here. Then if I look, I've got some other ones here. So here's one that's private. I'll show that the team's created. I have another one here that's pending approval. So once this is submitted, or if it's pending approval, or when it's submitted here, I'm going to have another flow kick off. So I'm going to go back to my flows. And I made this a shared flow. So I'm going into here. I have a flow here called team request approval. And if I go into this flow is going to be one, it's basically going to get all this information. And then what it's going to do is going to post an adaptive card into Teams. So this whole process, what will happen is when there's a request that's going to come in, this flow is going to submit an adaptive card to this Teams channel here. And so this is the one where you're only going to give your admins, the people that you actually want to approve these requests. So you're going to see I have a couple in here. Now I did this for a reason, because I'm going to show you the logic app. So I have one here that's pending. Now I have here that's already been submitted. I mean, it's been approved. And then here's the one that I created now. Maybe I want to reject this one. You know what? Say not needed. Okay, I'm going to reject this one. And then I'm going to go and approve this other one. So I'm going to reject it, and the person's going to get an email letting them know that it's been rejected. And then if I click approve for this one, I'll say, okay, this is good to go. I'm not going to put a comment. I'm going to approve this request. And so what's going to happen now, there's a logic app that has been deployed to Azure. And this is another thing that you would just go ahead and follow the instructions to deploy this. And that's what I did. There was a PowerShell script I ran. I followed all the instructions. It deployed the resource. It deployed the logic app. It deployed everything I needed for this app. Now, this logic app is for the initial team creation. The purpose of this app is so once it's approved, the admin doesn't have to go and create it. This logic app is going to automatically create this team. So I did one in here, what's called Charlotte Area Spug. I did this earlier because this logic app, when it takes about 5 minutes to go through the process before it actually will create the team. So I at least wanted to have one published here for you so you saw it. And it's telling you this team has been created. And so there's the new team that's been created that shows up. Now let's look at the logic app. So if I go on here, there's a logic app called Process Team Request. So you have two flows in Power Automate, one to check the site availability, the second one to do the approval process on where it sends the adaptive card to the Teams channel. So that way the admin can approve or reject it. So now what I have here is this logic app And there's only one thing you would change, and if you're comfortable with the flow, then you will get pretty comfortable with looking at this logic app. So if I go in here, this is a timed process. I have it set to run every day. I had it set to every month because I don't demo this every day, but you can decide how often you want this to trigger. So what'll happen is, right now I have it set to every day. Maybe I want it to set it every hour. So every hour this would run, that it would go and actually check that SharePoint list. So what it would do is go in and check the requests. So that this logic app is going to go through, it's going to loop through here and find all of these ones that are pending or that have been approved and need to be created. And then it's going to take that information and run through all the processes and actually create the site. Okay. Now I can decide to go ahead and run this if I wanted to. And I actually have some, let me discard, hold on.
Christina, there's a question about licensing required as part of this in the chat window. The question is, will it require anyone using the app to have the Power Apps and Power Automate licenses, or are those licenses only necessary for the person creating the app?
So this actually, because I'm using a SharePoint list as the data source, it all falls under the regular standard licensing you have for, if you have E3 and actually E3, E5, maybe E1. Any of the enterprise licenses you should be covered, because I'm not using I'm using SharePoint as the data source. So it should fall under their standard subscription. Did that answer the question? Now, where the licensing or where you'll have anything is you need to have an Azure subscription to run the Logic app. And there's a way behind this too. So let's say you don't, maybe you don't want to run the Logic app. You could still leverage using the solution. The only thing is you would actually have to go and manually create the team yourself once it's approved. So that's why this is, and this doesn't, running these Logic apps don't really cost me anything, maybe pennies a month. But yeah, so the licensing, because with Flow, the standard connectors, if you're connecting to a SharePoint list and Teams, these are all considered the standard connectors. There's no premium connectors being used in this solution. So as long as your users have, you know, just you assign them, they have their enterprise license, then it'll fall under there. Now, what I've seen other people do too, though, is where they might have the licenses for other users, right? Where if I go into users here, I'll go to active users, and then I'll go in. How long do I have until Andy? 6:30?
Yes, 6:30 is
Okay,
usually our wrap up time.
perfect. Okay, so what I've seen a lot of organizations do is where they might not have it turned on, where they've got the licenses here because it's included, and it's not, why does it not want to load? But where they might not have it turned on, they might not have Flow and Power Apps turned on. Let's go to one of my accounts here. Let's go to, this is the license one here. So if I go to this license account, it would fall under the standard. Let's go to apps. So as long as you just have it turned on, I think it's Power Automate for Office 365 and Power Apps for Office 365. Just the standard. Okay, this is bad to look at because I'm actually, like I said, I'm an MVP, so I've got all this stuff. But as long as it's not using a premium connector, you're good. So you don't have to have the premium licensing. Okay. So there we go. So let me go back to the Logic app. So the Logic app, I had one that ran here. So it goes through the whole process, goes through everything and runs. And now let me go back to, whoops, I just jacked that up. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Refresh. Wow, I'm really jacking up my screen here. I'm going to go ahead and run this. So I'll run this. And so now what it's going to do, and this takes time. So, well, what it's going to do, it's going to go ahead and run through the list. And then within about 5.5 minutes, I will see another team show up. And then the users will be able to go on here and take a look at saying, okay, I requested this team. Let me go. They would be able to see it in my request, but like I said, I'm having an issue with mine, so it's not showing up. But I can see here, look, this request was put in, but it was rejected. And if I click on details here, you know what? This is where I might update the Power Up as well, because if I look at this, I see it rejected. Doesn't say why, but I should see in the email. I should have gotten an email which would actually have the reason why. but you can decide to update the Power App because you might want to include that information there, or you may not want to include that in there. It's probably not going to show up in here. Which account did I have so many accounts. But anyways, get the request in. There would be an email that would come in and give that reason. So any questions? What do you think? I think this is a very good solution because I think this is something that has been a big ask for a lot of organizations. So yeah, so because it's just using the SharePoint list, it's just going to use your standard licensing. Shouldn't have any issues there. And so this is just a screenshot there, and you see here, boom. Okay, I'm looking at these requests, and there we go. So I have some links on here for you. One for I'll put these in the chat as well. Developer program. Let me do it in Notepad first. Any other questions? Okay, I'll post this in chat for you. So this is give you a link to the Teams app templates, gives you a link to the developer program. There we go. Perfect. What do you say? Some companies have it turned off, so this will be an issue for you, I think. Roberta, what were you talking about that? Were you saying that just people, well, which part, having what turned off?
So we have, and it looks like it's not just us. We haven't enabled Power Apps or Power Automate yet for our tenant.
Okay.
So that won't work until we give them access to Power Automate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because well, let me think this through. No, hold on. You know what? This is something I need to test out because you can run. I gotta think this through. I need to test out a couple different scenarios, and one of them is one, they have to be able to run a power, they have to be able to play the Power App. But I need to test different scenarios because you can run you do need to have that turned on, but I'm wondering if you just ran it under because a lot of this is running under a service account. So what I need to test is having a different account with some of that turned off to see what actually works. So you just gave me an idea to test a couple different scenarios.
The question was specifically if we had to have it turned on, and I know that you do. So yeah. we have a few service accounts that we use for running some of our Power Automates.
Yep.
But we don't have them for the entire company now. Soon,
gotcha.
But not yet.
Okay. Well, does this kind of give you more of an itch to maybe why you'd want to turn it on?
Oh, trust me. I've been fighting it from day one. Yeah. But it actually wasn't my question. I was responding to.
Well, thank you for responding. Yes, that's right. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you for that. Okay, any other questions? I hope this session was helpful for you. Apologize, my other demo wasn't working, but to be honest, I tested all my request app, but I didn't test. I should have tested my other one, and I apologize for that. But these are really cool and fun to play around with. And like I said, what you could do is sign up for the developer program and use that sandbox tenant. What doesn't come with that is an Azure subscription. I have Azure credits. What I haven't tried doing was, because a lot of times you can deploy stuff into a different Azure portal and give it access to the other tenant. So there's different scenarios you might be able to do. But from a Power App standpoint, I mean, like some of that stuff you can just test directly in a sandbox environment. So, but yeah, there's a lot of things for you guys to think about that have stuff turned off. But I get it. I totally understand. A lot of organizations, I get it, because I'm dealing with a customer now that is I did training for them because I did admin training for them to help them understand things, and I'm helping them with kind of prototyping stuff out just to get them at a comfort level before they're going to turn stuff on. Okay, was this helpful for you guys? I hope it was.
Yeah, this was great. We actually were just having conversations in my environment about that exact thing, provisioning teams.
Fantastic.
So that was very interesting, very helpful.
Okay, good. But like I said, there's a lot of different templates. There's ones I really like too, which is some of the bots. But bots, those also require. I don't have those templates, but I had those templates and I turned them off. I had them deployed, but I turned them off because it was chewing up my Azure credits, because some of that uses cognitive services. So really cool stuff, but you know, I just yeah, I totally chewed up my credits because I was demoing a lot. But like I said, and I think there's about 9 Power Platform solutions in there right now, which are actually some pretty good ones, and it keeps growing. Okay. Well, like I said, and if you guys are deploying this and you run into issues, feel free to, let me put my contact information back up. Feel free to reach out to me. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. Yeah, because if you have issues, let me know. I'd be happy. I would have no problem helping you out. And there's my contact information again. You know what? I'll put it in. I mean, email to here. I'll put that. I have multiple. I created an email account that's specifically just for stuff like this, because I was missing things because it was getting clobbered with all my other work stuff. So you guys can email me at this email account if you run into any issues, and then I can always, then from there I'll ping you with my actual Teams ID and we can go from there. All right, thank you. Cool. Well, this is great. Thank you everybody for having me.
Yeah, thank you. That was some really awesome stuff. It's really cool to see some of this stuff like start to roll out and start to get developed and start to get published. I'm really interested to see where a lot of it goes. I wonder where there's going to be cross or overlap with some of like what the PMP community is doing, crowdsourcing and building some of this. I'm really interested to see if that's going to start rolling into some of the solutions that are coming from on this side of it. So no, that was awesome, Christina. Thank you so much.
Great. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Usually, we open it up for Q&A here the last few minutes. So if you don't mind just sticking around for a couple minutes in case any additional questions come through. Some of our attendees are a little shy sometimes and they kind of wait to the end. But we'll open it up Q&A for anybody who has any additional questions about anything that you've seen here. But I do want to thank Christina for being here, putting on an awesome presentation. That was really cool. And giving a master class in how to work through the issues of demoing live with the rate of change in the ecosystem and moving back and forth between different tenants and different systems. I know she's going through this. I'm like, yep, been there, done that. got the T-shirt. So
I refuse to record my demos. But sometimes I probably should, just as a backup. But you know what? And people have appreciated this because I mean, there's times and they're like, Christina, no, I'm glad you had issues because you're showing us what we deal with in the real world.
Yep.
I don't like to do smoke and mirrors. I do not like to do smoke and mirrors. I'm all about
no vaporware in the presentation.
But one of the things, and I apologize, y'all, the one I should have checked was the one I deployed a while back, and I should have redeployed it as a new solution, which I'm going to do after this. And I know it's broke because certain things updated. So but those are things you're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, it's so hard to keep track of all of that.
Now, is this showing backwards or the correct way?
It's the right way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mirrored for you, but
okay.
yeah.
So curious.
Yeah, it's showing up the correct way for us.
Good. Well, that's good. So like I said, I really enjoy this stuff and I think it's great. And I think it's, I've been a bit of an advocate of it. But there's some really great solutions on there to fit business, to fit different needs.
It's a really encouraging start, and for me, it really builds on a comment that Jeff Teeper has publicly made, but he's also made it to our user group. We had the Super SharePoint Saturday, end of 2019, and one of the things that he mentioned is that Teams is essentially the gateway to Microsoft 365. It's that one application that really brings everything together into one place. And some of the stuff that like you showed here and some of the templates that they're rolling out further reinforce that we can have that one central portal for these solutions. We can build it around the interface that's actually bringing everybody into Microsoft 365, and we can simplify that experience for the end user. That means the power users among us, we've got some really exciting areas to explore. And coming from a group that is evolving from just the SharePoint roots that we have, and then moving into the larger Microsoft 365 arena. It's really cool to see the capabilities, but also it gives us an idea of what skills that we need to be sharpening so that we can make that transition to the future of this platform. So it's really cool stuff.
Cool.
I'm going to stop the recording, and if anybody has any